Friends, in one of my recent videos, I had explained how some angels that God had sent down to watch over humans married earthly women, crossbred God's creatures, and they themselves got involved in miscegenation, which led to giants and strange creatures, chaos, and bloodshed on the earth that God had to wipe out his own creation with Noah's flood in order to start all over again. However, even after the flood, Lucifer the devil and his human companions, such as Noah's son Ham and his son Cush, provoked God by doing the very same things, and God had to deal with them severely. When Noah and his family descended from Mount Ararat, where the ark had landed, they settled down on a place called Arata on the Armenian side, and this is where all the evil broke loose. This is when the infamous incident of Ham seeing his father's nakedness took place. It is here that Lucifer started mixing up God's creations all over again. Noah's wife, her son Ham, and his son Cush were all the devil's collaborators, and they were rebelling against Noah's God, blaming him for bringing forth the flood and wiping out all their ancestors. Cush had even given his women as incubators for the Lucifer's genetic experiments. By the way, in Hinduism, Cush is also known as Kashyapa, which means Father Cush. And this is what they mean when they say that all creatures were born of the 10 wives of Kashyapa. Another thing that we need to consider is that Ham, Cush, and all their descendants are well versed in black magic. Historian Barrosus points out that Ham, being the father of magic, enslaved the people of ancient Bactria by the use of necromancy, which is invoking the spirits of the dead in order to get certain things done in our human realm. Furthermore, the children of Cush were the early ones to mix with the fallen entities. This is how giants were born after the flood. A classic example is that King Nimrod, who owned the whole of Mesopotamia, was a giant, and Bible clearly states that he was a son of Cush. He is the one worshipped as Lord Shiva in Hinduism. Please take a listen to my popular video, Is King Nimrod the Lord Shiva of India?, for more on this topic. Apparently, Cush was very dark-skinned. In fact, the Bible asks a rhetorical question about his people. Can the Cushite change his skin, or the leopard his spots? What you see here are some figurines of Cushite gods retrieved from an Egyptian tomb, which is 4,000 years old. They do resemble the Java tribes of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which is a union territory of India. On the whole, Cush's descendants were tall and very skilled archers that they were sought after as mercenaries in ancient armies. Cush's people, because of their might, were prominent in Greek mythology as well. One can see these people depicted in ancient amphoras as heroes. And Cush was a genius, even though he was on the wrong side of the equation. I believe that God muted him, and of all the sons of Ham, Ham had to stay with him all the time. How I assume is that in the ancient Tamil literature, one can find connections to many biblical characters of the Bible. This is a common saying among the Tamils called the mute Cush, which denotes people who appear so passive and pleasing but brew troubles behind the scene. But no one seems to know where this saying came from. When I say all these things, some people say that Bible doesn't say anything evil about Cush or his character. Yes, it is true. However, it is also true that when someone is very bad, the Bible totally skips the mention of that person's name. It is like Noah's wife. In spite of being the mother of the post-flood humanity, her name cannot be found in the Bible. Similar is the case of Cush. Now, Cush was a great architect. When the children of Noah divided the known parts of the earth among themselves, Cush inherited the whole of Africa, and the ancient Indians used to call Africa Cush Did Evil after his name. When Ham and Cush moved in there, they did not settle in Egypt, as one may assume. They settled in Memphis first. Apparently, Cush diverted a branch of Nile River before he established Egypt with the help of Mlechas, which refers to a Japhetic tribe of the Greeks. However, misfortune fell on Cush and Ham in Egypt. What happened was that Ham had killed the king of Libya named Haman, and when his son Dionysus grew up, he ambushed Egypt, wanting to avenge his father's death by killing Ham. During this melee, Ham and Cush got separated, and Cush moved up the Nile toward Ethiopia, while Ham fled to India by ship. According to Ethiopian tradition, noted by explorer James Bruce, Cush traveled up the Nile to the uninhabited Atbara plain. From this vantage point, his family viewed the Ethiopian tableland, where they later ascended to build Aksum before establishing Meroe, marking the region as ancestral to the Cushites. The book of Aksum mentions that the great obelisk of Aksum was erected by Cush to mark his territory. The same book further explains that Ethiopia is a descendant of Cush as their first king. The word Ethiopia refers to Cush people as being black. Well, after leaving Aksum with Ethiopians, Cush sailed toward Mesopotamia to carve out a land for himself. There he took over a city, developed it and named it Kish after his own name. We have archaeological proof for this city. Here's a tablet which states that after the flood had swept over the land and the kingship descended from heaven for a second time, Kish became the seat of kingship. Apparently, that land belonged to the family of Sargon the Great. After about 40 years, Sargon drove Cush out of Kish. From there, Cush came to India, along with Vishwamitra and Lord Krishna. Once in India, Cush established a city named Kosala, meaning the place of Cush, and his son was Lord Rama. Bible states that Rama was the son of Cush. One can also see Rama's son bearing the name of his grandfather Cush. Furthermore, even Kashmir and Caspian Sea bear the name of Cush. Because of his influence in so many regions, his name is pronounced in all different ways possible as Cush, Kush, Kish, Kish, Kach, Kaush, Kash, and so on. Even in India, Cush's people were warriors. They were either the direct descendants of Cush or the ones that mixed with the then white population of India, namely the Bharatas, who were the Aryans, and the Japhetic Kuru people. That's why they call themselves Kshatriyas with a Kish at the beginning, denoting they are of Cush's lineage. However, nowadays, no one is even remotely willing to consider what I am pointing out here. And again, the Cushites were strong archers. How else do you think that Lord Rama won Sita in the competition? It is because the Indian princes were no match for a prince of African lineage. When Cush's people mixed with the fallen entities, what they received in return was huge bodies and strength, but the downside was their color. That is the reality, friends. In this video, we saw the role that Cush played in destroying the order of God's creation and how God dealt with that situation. Since this topic is unknown to many, I took it upon myself to make this video. Please like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Thanks for watching.